According to the documentary The World at War, the night before the invasion of D-Day actually happened, airborne forces were landed from the Americans and the British. Their primary objectives were to capture bridges along what was going to be the axis of advance for the landing forces, which would allow for them to advance easier, and if a counterattack happened, they could kind of dictate where the attack would come from. The first actual landing of D-Day happened at a location called Pointe du Hoc. Here, the 2nd and 5th Army Rangers had to scale 100-foot cliffs to reach a battery or artillery position that was located on the top of the cliff. The reason they had to capture this was because they could fire 155mm shells on Omaha Beach, which would have been devastating to the landing forces. Initially, they didn't capture the objective because once they reached the top of the cliffs, the guns actually weren't there, and they had to push further inland, and they eventually found and captured the guns. However, by the time they captured the guns, the invasion had already started. The invasion took place across 5 beaches called Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. The Americans took Utah and Omaha, while the British took Gold, Juno, and Sword. Of the American beaches, according to the documentary Surviving D-Day, Omaha was the worst. The preliminary bombardment mostly missed their targets, and the beach had a natural cliff landscape to it at the end of the beach, and it was a very open beach compared to the other ones, which actually had small rocks and stuff that you could actually hide behind. Omaha actually suffered the most casualties. Forces attacking Omaha suffered the most casualties out of any other attacking force. They took so heavy casualties that it actually took them the majority of the day to actually take the beach, whereas the other beaches fell mostly before noon. The worst beach for the British was Juno. Here the landing forces were actually landed a little bit before what was going to be their tank cover, basically. So they landed with absolutely nothing and suffered very heavy casualties. Out of all the Allied beaches, Utah was the easiest beach to capture. The forces that landed here faced very, very light resistance and actually managed to push so far inland that they actually linked up with the airborne forces that had landed the night before. And mentioning the airborne forces, they were actually given orders during the invasion to start capturing coastal batteries to kind of ease the fire that was coming down on the landing forces that were currently fighting. Due to the bad weather in the days before the invasion, many German soldiers were placed on leave because the German commanders were thinking that there was no way an invasion could happen. And the German general in charge of the defense of Normandy, General Erwin Rommel, was actually not even in France when the invasion happened. He was actually back in Germany celebrating his wife's birthday. Also, in the months before the invasion, the French resistance was very instrumental in actually helping us to invade. They made many demolition attempts on supply lines and railways to kind of disrupt what was coming into the coastal defenses, and they would also go along the coast and actually kind of hand draw fortifications that they would then send by homing pigeon back to Britain, which gave the Allies intelligence on what the strength of the defenses were on each beach. Though according to the book The Battle of Normandy, though the invasion is actually thought of as a success, virtually none of the initial objectives for the first day were captured. Because for the first day they were supposed to push inland and then unite in a united kind of front, and that didn't happen until around June 12th, which was about 6 days after the initial invasion. With the invasion of D-Day, the Allies were finally able to push back into France and bring a quicker end to the war. After the initial invasion, the Allied advance was at a very rapid pace because most of the Allied vehicles were actually able to travel at a fast speed. Due to this speed, the Germans really weren't able to set up more sturdy defenses, and sometimes if the Allies would face a defensive position that they knew would take a while, they would simply bypass it and just use their sheer numbers to surround it. The invasion of D-Day brought a quicker end to the war and finally allowed the Allies to push into Germany.